Welcome to Windows on the World Live. Tonight I'm going to be talking to Gonzalo Carrera and Rob from This Machine Kills Archons. And we're going to be talking about their new video, which I think is groundbreaking, but I do have a very good reason for saying that. And we're going to talk about many things tonight. And also I'd just like to remind people that we do not post any of our shows, our live shows, anything in our archive is not on YouTube, only the occasional live stream and the occasional trailer, because YouTube have taken down so much of our material. Please subscribe to us on the homepage at Windows on the World, on Spreaker and Odyssey. All the links are there on the homepage. We are the most marginalized show on the internet, and have been from the start, which is a good thing because we have a very selective audience. And if that includes you, dear listener, thanks for listening, because the information I get from the audience is absolutely paramount to the material which we put out. In other words, people send stuff in that backs up everything we put out. Everything we put out is factual, useful, and more importantly, it has solutions. We have wisdom, insight, and solutions at Windows on the World, and we are not part of the grifting conspiracy circus. So having said that, let's get on with the show. So Rob and Gonzalo, I think maybe we should start with how this project got together, because it's an interesting project and a very key one to what's going on, isn't it, really, Rob? Because you kind of started this project a couple of years ago. So how did it all come about?
Yeah, so I started. So I've been playing music for several years, but I started to want to sort of, in about 2020, start writing some songs about what's really going on, really. So I put out I put out a couple of EPs. And then I got kind of connected with the Jam for Freedom movement, where they were going around playing in parks, etc. And that's when I met up with Gonzalo,
That's right.
and we sort of connected. We did a gig down in Sussex, last year. And then we decided just to keep meeting up, really, and we've been meeting and started jamming a bit, and we put some new songs together, which we've recorded recently. And then this chap said that he would do a video for us, which was very kind of him.
Okay, exactly. Well, suddenly that, didn't it, when I was over in London?
Yeah.
And we talked about it, and I didn't know whether I was going to be still in London when we were going to film it. And I was, and we did. But I was really interested in your stuff, Rob, because it's quite insightful and it's different. It's not like a lot of the other stuff out there. And it's been sort of compared very lazily to other artists, which I never really do. But I think that that particular period when you got it all together was quite interesting, because that was the COVID years. And that's when there was a lockdown. So what you were talking about with the Jam for Freedom thing is you were actually going out when there was a lockdown, right? That was the whole point of it. So that was a very interesting and definitely a massive part of the social engineering that went on, because that to me was the declaration of war on the 11th of March 2020 when it all started. I knew that they were into a new phase of the operation, and it was very audacious, like everything they do. It was very audacious, but at the end it was crap, wasn't it?
Yeah, but they pulled it off. Unfortunately,
they pulled it off,
and they couldn't imagine it. Definitely, they would pull it off, but they did. Yeah, when I met Rob and Mark, thanks to Campbell, we started jamming. We became very good friends, and he introduced me. The first time when I heard the songs, I thought, wow, I love the harmonies, a bit like Beach Boys, late Beatles period, which I love. And I started adding some kind of my ideas to his stuff. I am pretty much into jazz, Supertramp, and I think we made a really nice blend. I love the Spiritual Wars track, which has got a big influence from Bob Dylan, and that's the one we put it towards the video. And it was very easy for me to flow. I mean, I had some ideas like, we all got influences, like I got a bit of influence from classical or Rick Wakeman. The great thing about Rob, he never told me, don't play that, don't do that. He's a great guy. He's, in a very easy way. And when you kind of have like that kind of chemistry, whether it's a marriage or friends or a band, everything flows better, right? When they start telling you, don't do this, don't do that, you can't even think properly.
Well, that's the problem, isn't it? It just kills everything. And I think that's the main thing about this process, is that it's totally anti-globalist. Anything creative is anti-globalist because they can't create anything. All they do is imitate, copy. And that's really a sign of the times. So I think that the idea of keeping stuff alive, and small industries, really, people doing their own thing. I mean, they made it pretty impossible to sell music, but I think it has to go back from this global thing to local. And that is where everything happens. I've always said that's where everything happens. I mean, I've been in Central Eastern Europe on and off for a couple of years, and I get involved in looking at a lot of stuff which is very craft orientated, and it's all about small amounts of people getting together to do things. And that is really a way of getting out of this centralization of everything, because then you find that you do have power to do things that you want to do. And that's really, I think, the big problem with the music thing, because a lot of people have now said, oh, it's not even worth putting an album out because we don't make any money. Even the big bands say it. But I mean, if they've got all this money from their previous record sales and they've sold their catalogs, why don't they make music for the fans then? Why are they moaning about making music? The whole thing is a bit ridiculous and redundant to me. That sort of
That's
argument.
right.
What do you think?
That's right. I mean, it's been a month that I have other releases coming out with that band Karnataka, which I love the music and the production, but I'm no longer anymore with them because there was a few differences. But yeah, a lot of people, they're getting into putting out CDs, physical CDs. Rob is having his album coming out. We are having the album coming out on the 12th of July, I think it is. Yeah, Rob?
Yeah, that's right. Next Wednesday. Yeah.
That's right, yeah.
Well, that's great. I think you should tell us, Rob, how long you've actually been writing for. Is it quite recently you got into making music, or has it been a long-term thing?
No, I mean, I had piano lessons when I was probably about, I don't know, 12 or something. But yeah, but I never got on with it because it was always like learning, reading music and having to, and from the very point when I first started to have lessons, I just used to write stuff, my own stuff, and that's what I would prefer to do. I didn't like playing, you know, sheet music or anything like that. I mean, the piano lessons didn't carry on, but then I think I got like a David Bowie and a Beatles songbook or something, and started to learn the guitar from that. And then even then, I was, you know, you pick up chords from playing songbooks. But even then, I just started to write songs straight away. It just felt like a natural thing for me, you know, to do. So I was always, from the get-go, I started making things up. But I think you have to hone your craft, don't you? Obviously, you know, the first few songs I wrote were probably terrible. Probably got them on a tape somewhere, you know, you don't want to listen to them. But,
I think that's the way you get good at anything, really.
Yeah, exactly.
And you obviously start off with these influences, and then something original comes out of it. It happens with all bands, really.
Yeah, Beatles.
You know, whatever. People talk about the Beatles and the Stones and all that, but they were pretty carbon copy when they started, and then they just branched out a bit. I'm not a great Beatles fan, and I've really gone off the Stones, so I don't know why I brought them up. But I listened to a lot of this stuff from the 60s and 70s, and there's so much out there that I didn't listen to at the time. And there's actually a lot of those bands who I really liked, very esoteric, obscure bands, as far as the public are concerned, that are still turning out albums, and I didn't even know. So there is amazing stuff out there. But yeah, as far as your influences go, I suppose people will say that there was a nod to Subterranean Homesick Blues in not the music of the video, but the actual execution of the video, because we used these cards. Do you want to tell us about that, Rob? Because I think it's really effective. And I think actually it's more effective in you and Gonzalo's video than it was in the original Dylan one. But he was probably a bit kind of ahead of his time, the way he looked and everything. Because obviously, the other thing about Dylan is he tried everything. He tried rock and roll. Yeah. And then he put on that voice, which sounds ridiculous. And then the rest is history. And he followed it up with complete audacity. And now it's interesting because he says, I don't even recognize who that person was, which is fascinating in a way, isn't it?
Yeah. Because you're right. He put that voice on. Because I think he can actually sing. You know, some of those early 70s albums, he starts singing a bit more country. I mean, his voice is all right. He can hit the notes, you know, but it's kind of just an affectation that he he decided to do. It's kind of, but yeah, with the cards, I mean,
what do you mean?
Just think,
it's an affectation. Yeah.
What are you talking about, man? No, I think that idea with the cards, and I think the way, I mean, hats off to you, Mark. I think the way you put it into the video, I think it's fantastic, because
Perfect.
if it was, like you say, if it was just the cards like Dylan did, it becomes a little bit okay. But because the way you've mixed it in with the playing,
I think we've also got to give Bob a bit of a tip of the hat in the respect that nobody really made music videos in those days, and it was pretty radical what he did. So
totally, yeah. I mean, yeah. No, absolutely.
When he was changing the cards, you did it much better than Bob Dylan, because Bob Dylan is not changing them on time with the words. Actually, you did a much better job.
Well, we cut them in, so he had to be. I thought it was good to put them before and after, actually.
Yeah.
So after, you've got a bit of change rather than it just being on cue all the time. It'd be boring. Nick's just put in "Spiritual Wars" reminds me of the Jimi Hendrix Axis Boulder's Love. Anyone remember that? Just ask the Axis. He knows everything. So that's Nick there. Nick from Walthamstow.
Oh,
our
yeah,
good
Nick,
friend.
Our friend Nick.
Yes. Great author. And I really enjoyed seeing Nick again. We sat through some of the Heretics of London. And next time I go to London, we're going to do a screening, or several screenings. Sean's just put, I always thought he was singing through his nose. Well, that could be a bit controversial. So let's move on.
We're going back to the cards, Mark. Just to say, I mean, I thought, okay, this is a great idea, but I mean, it took me about 2 bloody days to sit and write on.
They were really well done, though. I mean, people are going to know what we're talking about in a minute if you haven't seen the video. So we're not sort of titillating you with no reason here.
And also between takes when they were dropped on the floor. I mean,
that was fun. Yeah, right at the end.
Getting back in order again.
I had enough of this. I'm walking away.
Well, it's a long day, Rob, but as you know, show business is a cruel mistress, and if you don't like it, get out.
we have some fun that day, Mark. Definitely.
Yeah, that's good.
Definitely. Like that guy, he asked me where was St. Thomas Hospital, remember? And then I told him the address. No, it's not there. And you go, well, why did you ask then? It was quite a.
And he goes, oh, is it Clever Dick? Is he? And he walks off. I mean, yeah, people ask you things that they know more of than you do, and then when they realise that they know more than you, then they still keep asking you. I mean, that's a weird thing, isn't it, in London? That when you ask somebody directions, nobody seems to know where anything is.
No.
Yeah.
Have you noticed that? It was always the same, wasn't it? Whoever you asked, nobody knew where anything was. Get the very occasional person. And sometimes they'd keep you there for a long time. Sometimes too long.
I think it's worse now with the GPS. People that are just very lazy to kind of sort it out directions and all that. Definitely, it's happening with music as well, with everything.
Yeah. When I first moved to London, I always had the A to Z in my back pocket.
Oh yeah, I remember the A to Z. I miss it actually. It used to be great.
They were great. The old London A to Zs. They were fantastic.
Yeah,
really accurate. Bit small. You know, you had to go to the bigger maps.
Yeah.
Especially at night.
Before one thing that I love in the video that I have a bit of an idea on that about They Live, we did a bit of a tribute with the film They Live, which everyone that knew what was going on in 2020 is it was just ahead of the time back then. Except when they brought down, what did they say? Don't have babies reproduce. Well, I don't think they want that.
No, the marry and reproduce thing was the only thing that was inaccurate in the whole movie. Yeah. We're talking about They Live, which was a film made by John Carpenter. It was released in 1988. And it's really about the people in control of everything are not who they appear to be. I won't ruin the film for you if you haven't seen it, but you can actually watch it. I think it's even on YouTube, but I think it's on Odyssey as well. And you can just watch it and see what you think of it. But we used some of that for the film because it's such a good cinematic device. And when you're making something like a music video, especially with something that was 5.5 minutes long, I think it needed something else. It needed a subplot or an extra narrative going on. Right. And that supplied it. But I think that another good point is that with all the technology now, you can make the most amazing looking videos for nothing if you've got the time.
That's right.
And bands don't seem to put much effort into videos anymore. I really don't like them. I think the MTV days were when it all kicked off, weren't they? And you had like Duran spending all this money on them. And it basically revolves around how many good-looking women you can get in there, really. It's funny that, you know, here I go again on my own. That is so funny. So I don't think the band even knew those girls were in it. I think the drummer, I forgot his name, he just said, "Oh, I watched the video, I couldn't believe it." I said, "Where did they get these women from?" You know.
It used to be great. I mean, when there was a story behind, I think this is great with this song. We managed to do that. Nobody does music videos anymore. Most people, at least. But it was great fun, definitely.
We should have had some girls in ours, really.
Yeah, you were saying, Mark,
dancing girls.
I kind of regret that in a way, because even if we'd have brought a sort of happy crowd down, I think it would have transformed it a little bit more. But we had to get it done on the day, and I quite like doing that.
Yeah,
you know, the sort of pressure, because we sort of arrived there at the South Bank, and I got there a bit before you two, and I was looking round finding places to film, and we found that Lower Marsh Walk and a few other places. And I always like that shot in front of the House of Parliament where you can see Big Ben on the other side of Westminster Bridge. That's a really good shot. I put that in another video, actually, a long time ago, for a band called Shalika, who made a song that was about the Tamil tigers in Sri Lanka. That was that's going back a bit. But I think that's a shame, really, because everything's been stripped out, hasn't it? You have to do everything pretty much for nothing now. So the days of, you know, getting anything back, especially for record sales. I mean, how do you find it, Gonzalo? Because you've contributed to quite a lot of bands over the years.
If they got a bit of a following, you made a few quid a year, a few numbers, but it's not much. But even the big names, they have it very, very hard, Mark. In fact, there's a project I'm doing with John Anderson called Piano Works, which he's gonna put it on Patreon. He's not gonna release an album because he did say nowadays everything gets down low, so it's very difficult. But that's what, remember Javier Losada, our good friend, he used to be the vice president of PRS in Spain. And in 1992, that's when they started with the idea of Spotify, iTunes. And he said to the directors, "This is madness. We're not going to make any money, the songwriters. Imagine if one day they stop the concerts," which it happened in 2020 and 2021. And they say, "Well, but it's very good because independent artists, they can promote themselves." Yeah, it's great, all that. But compared to 1990 or 1980, I mean, it's just peanuts. Unless you are a member of Spotify, like Kanye West or Beyonce, then you can get some nice millions. But otherwise, it's very, very difficult. 1 million of downloads is like 40 quid a year or something like that. But they have killed the industry, as you know, of course.
Yes. I mean, with the film, The Heretics of London, I mean, I put that really for people who listen to the show. I didn't want it on Amazon Prime and these platforms because you don't get much for them. And I remember the previous video that I made, which was about the life of Jet Harris, who was the original bass player in the Shadows. Funny enough, the BBC released the 60th.
The bass player on that movie, Mo Foster, he just died yesterday or something.
Oh, I knew Mo, because he was actually in my film about Jet Harris.
Yeah, great musician, amazing bass player,
Yeah, but at the 60th anniversary of the Shadows film that I saw the BBC had made, it didn't even mention Jet Harris. So I like to make films about people who are written out of history or may have messed up a bit, but the media have ignored them, and there's a conspiracy of silence around the fake world of show business.
Yeah,
and that's a really interesting thing, because I like these people who are forgotten and written out of history, a bit like Harry the Hipster Gibson. Maybe people don't remember him, but he invented rock and roll. Jerry Lee Lewis just copied him years later. Correct. Never gets any credit for it.
And you often find with these like biopics they bring out and all of that, it just sort of feeds into that kind of myth that that these people they were stumbled across by some record company and then they became stars, and it's all just a nonsense, and people start to believe that. I mean, I used to think, this is crap, but it must be good because they're famous, but,
there's a lot of money behind and politics, and then there were probably people even better than the Beatles or any other band that they never were lucky enough to make it, basically, for contacts.
Well, I saw something about it was, I can't remember. They were talking about Merseybeat. That was right. I think it was an article in some terrible publication like The Guardian, which is probably the worst publication on planet Earth.
You don't read the crosswords, right? Of the Guardian, like some of the
I post the articles into our Discord group because they're a source of amusement to us all, and they're a sign of the times that the degeneration of the mind is pretty much complete, and that people are willingly sacrificing them on the altar of fake sustainable development. You know, but that's probably a bit too heady. But what was interesting was they wrote all about Merseybeat, and they never mentioned the only black person in Merseybeat, who was Derry Wilkie, who I actually knew years ago. And he was an amazing performer. And there's another one just written out of history. He's actually in Bill Wyman's book about the Stones.
Okay.
He gets quite a mention in there. But I met him several times, and he died years ago. But he was the only black artist in Merseybeat. And written out of history. And in The Guardian, I thought that was really bad, because that's their diversity credentials went even further down the toilet there, didn't they?
Yeah. Never heard of him, Mark, actually. Yeah.
No.
Wow.
No, that's why I like looking into the history, because you find these amazing people. And actually, the people who get written out are usually the people who started things.
That's it. Yeah.
You know,
that's
right.
They
don't.
Yeah.
They either burn out before it takes off, or they just get copied and walked all over.
They steal their idea, they steal their ideas, etc., etc. Well, funny enough, you were very kind to introduce me to Danny Lane. I remember he's done some great history as well. And
very interesting person as well. You see, Denny, very fascinating person, and not show busy.
Yeah,
quite deep thinking. Can have a conversation. A lot of fun. We did some gigs, didn't we? It was great. All that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I wish all that was happening now. It would be fun. We can make it happen again. You see, that's the whole purpose of this show. That these things are happening, and you're going to do some gigs soon, anyway, aren't you?
Yeah, the festival, right, Rob?
Festival on the 4th of August. Yeah, on stage 7 p.m.
Before Joseph, there's a great artist called
Joseph Arthur. Right? Yeah, he's kind of.
Very brave. Yeah, he's against the whole system. I mean,
yeah, he's played with George Harrison's son, and
he was discovered by Peter Gabriel or something like that.
And he's done some songs with REM, and I think since like the last couple of years, he's kind of moved away from it, and
they ostracized him because he put the sunglasses, basically, Mark. He can see through everything, obviously. And then the headline is the Cream of Clapton Band, which features Will Jones, Eric Clapton's nephew.
So where is this festival?
It's in Harlow, I think. Harlow, Essex, yeah?
Yeah.
And what's it called? How do people find it?
So it's just called the Jam for Freedom Festival. So, so Campbell's organised it. It's over like 4 days, so from Thursday to Sunday. I think all the main artists are on Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So it's like, like a mini Glastonbury, if you like.
That's right. For the
Well, there should be more of those things. I mean, they do take quite a lot of organising, but I think that the idea of people organising their own small events where you don't need to get into getting massive permissions is a good idea as well. Just have small gatherings.
Yeah,
I think those are great because you can get your heads together and talk about interesting stuff. And the whole thing is, it's the community. See, not their community, because they usurp the word community. The word community just means a top-down imposition, which masquerades as your opinion and the opinion of the public, which of course it isn't. So to actually use their words, reclaim. They're always using reclaim, aren't they? Remember that globalist organization called Reclaim Power? Well, people should actually do that, I think. Yeah.
But
Rob's gone off. I don't know what's happened. You went off there, Rob. I don't know what happened.
No. Oh, did I? Well, I disappeared.
Okay, I think it's okay.
Yeah.
Are you okay?
Yeah, I think we're back in now.
Yeah. I think Campbell was interested for you to come to the festival as well to do some talks,
if I'm over there, I will. I'll definitely come.
That would be great,
I don't think festivals are the right place to do talks. We tried that several of those music festivals. They're not the right place to do it at all. People get too excited. They want to get drunk and they want to talk. And there was a good festival years ago called the Harlequin that I did. And I think that's probably still running. That's up in Norfolk, and it's a small festival. And it's less than 2,000 people. It's quite private in a way. You have to actually follow signs to get to it. And they don't just let people in on the door. So it's kind of a planned thing. I went up there years ago with Piers, I think, Piers Corbyn. And
yes, Corbyn.
I did some talks there. And the audiences there were good because they were going for that. It wasn't like a big, loud kind of get-together, boozy, fall-over festival, you know. It was more of a kind of family event. So people were more inclined to sit around. And I was thinking of organising something like that maybe in Europe somewhere, because there's some fascinating people around. I mean, to actually hook these people up who've got these different skills, I think is a really good thing. Again, it's anti-globalist, and that's where we should be going. Absolutely. You know, the joy suckers have taken the life out of everything. Got to get it back. Reclaim it, you see. Reclaim it.
Yeah, I think I went to that Harlequin festival, Mark, last year. Yeah, it's really small, and it's a job to find. I had to sort of go down a little road, and I managed to sort of blag my way in and said I was dropping something off. But
they're pretty nice people who run it. I mean, really I gave that as an example. Yeah, because it's different. It's a different kind of thing. And when I saw the Glastonbury thing, my heart sank. You know, it is really like a glorified concentration camp. Yeah, I just couldn't be bothered going to it.
It's like communist campaign pantomime, like David Curtin said, actually. That really well
last
week. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, fake lefty, neo-communist, champagne socialist, kind of virtue signalling, empty-headed waste of time. Yeah, and he's got his bad points, of course.
Like Fidel Castro, Che Guevara, fake revolutionaries that they want for the money for themselves, not for the people, as they say.
Yeah.
But
But they wheeled. I was going to say they wheeled out Greta Thunberg, I think, last year, didn't they?
They always have some bloody total embarrassment on there. Yeah, they had an Actor turned up as well, didn't he? Last time, Sir David Actor.
Oh,
he turned up as well, didn't he? For a double act with Greta. You know,
as you know, Mark, there is an album that they put her speech in one track. So anyway, I won't say no more. Basically,
yeah, those two made Cannon and Ball look hilarious, you know. Actually, they weren't too bad, Cannon and Ball, were they? It's just, unfortunately, the powers that be don't care what we think. Well, I don't care what they think. Do you care what they think?
No.
We know what they think. They haven't got anything going on in their heads at all, really.
Yeah.
I'm not interested in them. I find them incredibly dull. I find globalization and Agenda 2030 one of the dullest things that's ever happened, apart from the fact that it's a genocide, you know.
Well, it's like what you were saying earlier, Mark. I think it's the creativity thing. You know, I think they get really scared of people who can just spring things into, you know, like a song or something that comes from nowhere. And I think when that happens, they seem to like circle on it. So they'll either circle on it to shut it down, or they'll circle on it and turn it into something else, or say that they've created it, or you know.
Well, it might be you might be far right, you see, Rob. That's the thing, you see. How do they define that? Well, maybe it just means you're right, you see. So they've got limited memes. They've got very limited memes, you know. Hope not hate, and all of these sort of establishments that are set there by the intelligence services to kind of rubbish things that are outside the accepted narrative. And I think that it's gone so far now, it's a joke. It's like a comedy. But it's not comedic at the high end, because they obviously can use certain techniques which range from, you know, defamation to bumping people off, I suppose.
They don't have no sense
that's where it gets a bit worrying, I suppose.
No sense of humor. Remember that woman, Mark, when they mentioned that Ringo said he had to cancel the tour because he had COVID just last year. And then this woman that I know, I told her, and Ringo said, I didn't even notice that I have COVID. Anyway, it was probably just a flu. And the woman that I told this, she goes, oh, that doesn't surprise me, because Ringo is a Brexiteer, so he's probably an anti-vaxxer. So that's how he got the COVID. I mean,
that makes sense, doesn't it?
he got
to a Guardian read.
Brexit.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Well, that's it. I mean, someone's put in. I think they control everything, though. Unfortunately, non-compliance is all we have. Well, I think you can still enjoy yourself. I enjoy myself every day. Get out in nature. Do a lot of work. I mean, putting out this stuff over the years has been a completely thankless task in most ways, apart from the small audience that appreciated it. I mean, when the alternative media got taken over by grifters, which has happened over the past 5 years, but specifically in the past 2 or 3, it's turned into a complete dead end now. So we need an alternative to the alternative media, and that's here.
Yeah, because people they got a huge ego, narcissism. It's about them. It's the same thing with the fake born again Christians. They want to preach love, this, and then they are completely the opposite. All they think is in themselves, basically. So making money, making fame, etc., etc.
Yeah, well, it all comes down to grifting at the end of the day. I mean, I know people have got to make a living, but I never put that first. I put it last, and the point is that you suffer financially for that. But the actual work that has been put out by Winners on the World over the years, I think says it all. You don't need to say anything. Just look at the archive. It's all there. Most things have been covered. And also, what I find is that when I cover something which is not related to what the Conspiracy Circus are talking about, they point at something that's just become popular, like some historic narrative that's being pushed, and try and attach it to what you've said when it's got nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
So in a way, it's become, I think, worse than the mainstream, because the mainstream is just ridiculous. But the alternative has now got into a phase where they're putting out more misinformation than solid, useful information. And that's the whole point. And so that is very disappointing. I'm more disappointed in the people who were meant to be resisting it than those that are actually joining in with it, to be honest. Which is why I think you have to choose wisely who you're associating with and what you're linking yourself to, because most of this stuff now has become counterintelligence. I'm going to put some shows out over the next couple of weeks. And if you look at the last sort of stuff we've done in the archive, in amongst that, you'll find a show called The End of Law, which is all about what happened with the courts. And all of this is empirically proved because it's all stuff I was researching, and I went into courts over the years. And then I'm going to start looking at some of the more bizarre conspiracy hoaxes. And I've been quite close up to these hoaxes, and I know how they operate. And what's interesting is that people will take up these stories without knowing anything about them. Like there's some historical stuff going on at the moment, but it's not been backed up by anybody. And this just happens. It's like pass the parcel with the latest distraction.
For example, Tartaria and the mother, you know.
Well, that's all. That was all part of it. But Tartaria, that there's reference to Tartaria in the Bible, obviously. But the Tartars were horsemen warriors, Mongolian origin, who swept across Europe. So when people start talking about this stuff as a cartoon, it doesn't make any sense to me, because the Tartars were they actually swept into Bulgaria as well. I found out because the Bulgarians became very good horsemen, and it was down to this Tartar influence, or the Mongol hordes, as they used to call them, because a lot of them became mercenary armies because they were such good warriors, and it was because they were from tribes. You see, they were tribal warriors, so they're very different from the Celts and the Anglo-Saxons. These people were like tribal warriors, and that's the difference. You see, they're Asiatic. So yeah, all that stuff, they mix it all up into this nonsense, and then it becomes flat earth, Tartarian, mud flood bollocks, and they don't even know what they're talking about.
It's not going to bring solutions like we spoke with Madeleine and David about global to local. The solution will be to kind of give a vote of no confidence to the local councils, but nobody wants to do it. This is the problem. Nobody wants.
Nick's getting impatient in Walthamstow. He says, "Well, I guess you guys are just too young to remember the old Hendrix classic." I don't know if you remember, Nick. My record collection of about 10,000 albums. You weren't even into music when I got. You only got into music when you got into the Billy Pepper of the Pepper Pots, when you said it was fake Paul. That was brilliant. That was
wow.
That was old Merseybeat classics, which were like pastiche. We're getting off the subject here anyway. The Duggan hoax op needs revisiting before they do you again. Well, these things advance the agenda. In a way, once you know how the agenda's advanced, then you know that there are going to be victims. And we know that. We've seen that. We've seen that through the terror narrative. We've had COVID, climate change, terror. All these things are just drivers of change, and they all use them in the same way. I mean, the way that terror is manufactured is absolute garbage. Since 9/11, it's been downhill. Then they had 7/7, and from there, it's just like, well, white van man's gone and run amok, It's ridiculous. That is ridiculous, because that's not terrorism. It's just bad driving, right? Or George, that's what George Bush said when the plane crashed him. He said, or the alleged plane. I can't do that. Alleged plane.
The alleged plane.
Yeah, he said, "What a terrible pilot."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Breakfast in America of Supertramp. There was something on that cover anyway.
Yeah,
that's mad. That cover.
Yeah. Don't mention it to a few people I know related to them because that's just madness, just nonsense. But it's there. It's a coincidence. I don't know.
Will's just put in Cat Stevens had clearly been told to tick a few boxes at Glastonbury. I didn't see him actually.
Yeah, I saw a bit.
Yusuf Islam, right? That's his name now. Yeah,
Yusuf Islam. Yeah,
he was talking about climate change and.
Okay.
Oh God! Well, this is the thing. You see, that's what happened to a lot of those '60s people. I like the '60s people who weren't like that. There's a few of them.
Eric Clapton,
a few of them.
Eric Clapton Eric Clapton has been Van Morrison, and that's it. Nobody else.
Yeah, and they had limited knowledge of what was going on, but at least they said something.
Yeah, Ian Brown.
You know, I mean, what's wrong with people? I never really got that. I just thought that was pathetic, really. But I answered my own question when I made the Jet Harris film, because Clapton and loads of people were lined up to be in that, and none of them did it. One day, I'm going to ask why they didn't do it, but I think I know why. Because somebody had messed up a bit and got written out of history. Well, the thing is that the only documentary that was made about Jet Harris was the one I made. And otherwise, it would have been completely forgotten about. And that's wrong. We should be preserving history and these characters. Because there's so many of them. It's like Wayne Fontana, you know, when I met him with Bilderberg. I've got a great interview with Wayne, and he died. He died quite recently. But he really spoke out.
I saw that interview you did with him. Yeah.
I've got a whole biographical interview of his life.
Everything. Right.
Very clever guy.
Yeah.
He's funny as well, isn't he? It's funny. That interview you did where you're in the park with him. He's got like
that was at the Bilderberg thing. That was at the Bilderberg so-called protest, which was funded by Goldman Sachs.
Okay. Yeah.
Where you know all the time wasters got up on stage as usual talking bollocks. And the only people who were allowed to actually be in there overnight were Plymouth Radio, you know, who I've mentioned quite a few times. So I won't bother going into them tonight because they're not worth mentioning. Yeah, Wayne Fontana, a true beaut. Yeah, absolutely great bloke, you know. And that's it. It's fantastic when you meet people who are so down to earth, you see, because a lot of people in show business get very affected, but some of them don't. That makes them much more interesting people, in my opinion.
Well, we invite a well-known musician a well-known band from the 70s, Mark. Remember last year? And then he said he was keen about the 15-minute cities, and then he saw the website. He said, "Sorry, I'm very busy." Remember? You know who I'm talking about, yeah?
Yeah, that's okay. But I've heard these people talking, and it really did put me off when you said that he said he did the Guardian crossword every day. I thought, well, he can't just be looking at the crossword. He must be looking at the propaganda as well.
Yes, that's the thing, yeah. Exactly.
Oh, yeah, that's right, Neil. Neil, absolutely. That's completely right. But that was her and several others who were useful idiots who turned up as part of the fake protest movement. And a lot of those are still around. And this is what people had a problem with. When I was talking about it, I said, these people who've come along are leading you up the garden path because I'd seen it all before. And I wrote an article called COVID Protest Social Engineers, how the whole of that was being steered. Of course, everything's steered. That's why you have to use small groups. You have to work in small cells. That's what the Order of the Druids were doing in Ireland. There's a great documentary called The Last Druid. I made a show a couple of weeks ago called The Order of Knowledge. And it was the last surviving member of a triad of Druids. And he was saying that because of the last cataclysm about 3,000 to 3,500 years ago, we can go into Commons Beaumont stuff here as well, Shattered Isles. But he kind of concurred with that time period. And he was saying that the idea was that small groups of people were meant to survive the cataclysms, and they survived in these shelters called dolmens. And these were basically primitive bomb shelters. And it was fascinating because I've been thinking about this for so long, but it's true. That's how knowledge survives. It doesn't survive by fake protest groups and all of this funded nonsense.
Organic people with
all they're doing is they're putting out through the internet. It's not going to be like that. It will have to go back to the written word because none of this, in my opinion, is going to last. we're at the end of the civilization now, because everything's getting dumber. And when things get dumber, they go downhill, don't they? Yeah. But I think we're going uphill, and not up the hill backwards either.
David Bowie.
David Bowie. Yeah, should we play the video?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds great.
What I'll do is I'll take us all out and I'll put the video on, so we'll all disappear. So I want to...
It figures as
Yeah, that was good, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I hope we can see better now.
I think that the streaming was okay. I was just hoping that it didn't judder too much out there, but that was, I think, quite an effective video. And I love the song. I think that when we actually were making the video, the track wasn't finished and the backing vocals weren't on. That really lifted it. I knew it would.
Yeah, she's done a great job, Mabel.
And
right?
what she sings at the end, that girl, she's great. So, yeah, I thought it was fantastic when it was mixed.
Yeah, and you said, Mark, didn't you? It, really aided if it had some strong, like, some strong backing on there. And I think it was like, it took it to another level. Really, it's great with her. She's such a great singer.
Mabel, yeah, I met her playing at gospel churches years ago, and yeah, I forgot about her, and then suddenly she came on my mind, and she did that, she did more than what we were expecting, actually.
Yeah, she's fantastic.
Yeah. We have a great musician called Bob Loveday, but didn't play on that track. He played the penny whistle. Yeah.
You played the penny whistle. What, on the track?
No. On
another one.
Different tracks. Not that one.
Sorry.
The drummer's great too. She was the drummer. She's great. She's such a. She's only like
30 something.
Yeah, she's really small, and you wouldn't think that she's going to hit the drums that hard. But then she really, yeah.
Gonna try to work in some harmonies at the rehearsals for the festival.
Yeah, Gonzalo's going to do some singing. I mean, we've also got, which is great, Mabel, who we were talking about earlier. She's going to come to the festival and
oh, brilliant! That'll be fantastic.
Well. So yeah, I mean, that's really going to make it, I think, and. Yeah, looking forward to it. Because I think having her there as well, I think it will be a really good show.
That's great. We'll have to do this again sometime. We're coming up to the hour, so don't want to go on too long. And I hope people enjoyed it out there and do support the band. Download the track. Where do they download it from, Rob?
So it'll be, you can get it from all like the usual kind of digital platforms,
On the 12th of July.
From the 12th of July, yeah. So
that's right. So the official date is the 12th of July. We're nearly there, aren't we? So if people downloaded it, you actually would be helping the real independent music business. And that's what we've got to do, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. That's great, guys. Thanks a lot.
Great. Thank you.
It's swelter in here. I'm really hot here. I don't know what it's like in the UK. What's the weather like there?
Not so hot today, right? It's okay.
No, it's kind of a bit rainy. It's a bit...
It's swelter in here.
Yeah, yesterday was rainy, not today, but today is nice and cool. Definitely.
That's great, guys. Thanks a lot.
Lovely.
I really enjoyed that. And thanks for listening, everybody. Let's get back to the comments on, because I've just... Yes, that's great. That's great. Fantastic stuff. So, remember, live, 9:30 p.m. every Sunday night, windowsontheworld.net. Join us on Discord. Everything's on the homepage at windowsontheworld.net. You can find our Odyssey channel. Please subscribe to that, because we don't put much on YouTube. I sometimes put videos on BitChute as well and Rumble. But the main depositing area for Windows on the World content is Odyssey, and the link's on the homepage. So thanks a lot, everybody. And download that single, the EP. Sorry, it's an EP, isn't it? Old-fashioned EP. It's got how many tracks are on it, Rob?
4 tracks.
4 tracks, a 4-track EP. Yeah. That's great. Kicking it old school. So we need to get back to vinyl as well. That's another thing. So we might talk about that on the next show.
To get some of that.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Great. Cheers then. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Cheers. Bye.
Join me, Mark Windows, for Windows on the World live every Sunday, 9 to 11 p.m. GMT. Check out our archive and program stream at windowsontheworld.net.